Okay, so here we are, and I thought of something this morning, and I can't believe I never thought of this before. You remember Gerald? Gerald with his, well, I call it diabetes. And um, just to recap, so Gerald contacted me, concerned that maybe he's got diabetes. Actually, he never even said that, Gerald. Gerald just says, "What do you think?" So he's in complete denial, I think. I don't even think he wants to say the word diabetes. Um, Long story short, Gerald, with the glucometer, it's called the glucometer. I needed to correct myself. The other day, blood glucose reader or recorder wasn't correct, actually. It's a glucometer. So gluco, as in glucose, and ometer, so glucometer. Read 20. He borrowed somebody's glucometer at work, and his blood glucose level was 20. So that's the update on that. And he says he doesn't eat. He says he eats a lot of chocolate, but he doesn't put sugar in his tea or coffee. And what else did he say? A little bit overweight, doesn't exercise much, under a lot of stress. Under a lot of stress, he says. That part I actually didn't mention last time, but I remember now, under a lot of stress. What else? Anyway, the point is, I think we need to get feedback. I think Gerald, I think you need to get back to us, and we need a recap. We need to find out what happened, because I don't want to leave this alone. If we can use a war analogy, I don't like to leave a man behind in the battlefield. And the battlefield in this case is diabetes. And at the moment, your health, in my opinion, Gerald, is in Kabul. You are in Kabul from a health point of view. And we don't want to leave you behind. And I'll get into that plane. And I will fly. Obviously, not me, I'll get a pilot. I will, in this case, a GP, the captain of the medical ship. In this case, the captain of the aeroplane, the medical aeroplane. And we will, figuratively speaking, fly into Kabul and fetch you, Gerald. Which is a way of saying, in case you're not following me, we want to find out. We want feedback. Because Gerald thinks, because this is what he basically is, he thinks that if he can just stop with the chocolate, do a bit of exercise, that glucometer reading is going to go down to 6.8 or 6. No. Gerald, you need to go to your GP. And I'll guarantee you now, I don't think Gerald's been to the GP. Because I think Gerald, if he had been to the GP, I think he would have come back to me with the news. With what's happening. I think Gerald, don't be ashamed. Okay, maybe you should be a little bit embarrassed. But don't be ashamed. You're in denial. It's normal. You know, growing up, I never thought in a million years that I'd be diabetic. My grandmother, Ava Shalom, obviously, she was diabetic. I don't know whether it was type 1 or type 2. She was diabetic. My sister's diabetic, type 2. I'm not borderline. Okay, I'm not full on, but I'm, borderline diabetic. And you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. I didn't think I'd ever have high blood pressure. Got high blood pressure. And there is a phase of denial, and you need to break out of that denial. And Gerald, come back to us. I'm going to lift you over my shoulder and carry you off the diabetic battlefield. Or maybe drag you along. Did you ever see that movie? It was not Heartbreak Hill, but it was a Clint Eastwood movie. Where this guy, he was a medic. And he pulled all the soldiers along the ground and he took them down the cliff. I think it may have even won an Oscar, nominated for something. We'll take you out of together. We're going to be a team, Gerald. We're not going to just leave you there. And we'll drag you out of this diabetic battlefield. Or your GP will. Just get out of the denial. You've had 2 weeks now, 1.5 weeks to deal with the denial. Go to Harry Seftel would say, you've earned the operation. In this case, you've earned the appointment with the GP, Gerald. So come back to us with that, Gerald. I expect an answer. Today's Thursday. If you don't come back tomorrow, I accept you might still be. You got the weekend to work through your denial. Make an appointment. It's not a big deal. We need to do that. Okay, I like to do follow-ups. I forget things, and I say I'm going to do a bit of. I did a bit of research on the Afghan dog. Straight after the show yesterday, I looked it up, and it was a lot of reading. Major. I mean, I've often read up on dogs because I'm interested in dogs and the history, and I can tell you now, the history and the origins and everything about the Afghan dog is fascinating, really fascinating. As you read up about the dog, you're also reading up about the history of Afghanistan to a degree. There's like 14 different strains and different versions of the Afghan dog. It's got up to 10 different names. There's a certain breed that's more common in the border between Afghanistan and China. In 1912, there was a British officer who took some Afghan dogs with him back to England, and there's a couple of stories like that. It's fascinating stuff. Some lady her and her husband were living in Kabul in 1928, and they were breeding Afghan dogs. They're a beautiful dog, not so bright. In terms of intelligence, it was ranked like number 138 in terms of intelligence. Not so intelligent, but not completely thick. Not like a Great Dane. Great Danes, not bright. Golden Retriever. I was, before I start recording, I'm on the Twitter and I'm looking at various news stories, and I come across this CNN story with Chidi Emo. You know Chidi Emo? I think I'm saying her name right. She looks like your Boba from next door. She looks like your aunt, your aunt from next door. You wouldn't think, mustn't judge. She does good reports. I like her stuff. She did a report on this golden retriever in Toronto, and the dog's name is Sterling. And because of this article, I started following this dog at Life of Sterling Newton. At Life of Sterling Newton. That's beautiful golden retriever, lovely golden retriever. Golden retrievers, I tell you, are one of the best dogs ever. But interestingly enough, they're the best dogs for yourself if it's your dog. I've noticed with golden retrievers, whenever I'm at the park, I see them, they're beautiful dogs, and I want to cuddle them, I want to play with them. They're not interested. They don't like strangers. They don't want strangers to give them a cuddle. That's what I've noticed. But on the videos that people post on Twitter, they're very loving and very affectionate to their owners. And you know what? That shows a sign of intelligence. My miniature schnauzers, bless them. Look, they're clever dogs. They are clever. They're not completely doff. But they'll take love, they'll take affection from anywhere they can get it. Anywhere Charles Manson could walk into the room. They would play with him. Donald Trump could be sitting on my couch behind me. Mika would jump on Donald Trump. That's how, they're not fussy about who's gonna play with them. You know that. Okay, so another thing I want to introduce. Yes, this is not a medical show, but according to research and according to my experience over the years, health is people like to listen to and talk about health. The secret is it's got to be balanced. You mustn't overdo it. So you got to admit, I think the diabetes feature has worked very well, in my opinion. Good diabetes feature. And diabetes is not going away anytime soon. Diabetes, we're going to stick with diabetes every now and again. Especially with Gerald. I mean, Gerald will come back to us. Hey, Gerald. I hope, Kashfa Khalila, I hope, we don't hear from Gerald and then we find out he's diabetic coma. I mean, that's worst case. Gerald, it won't be as bad. But Gerald, it could lead to that in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, if you don't come back with the feedback. I don't think you're right yet for diabetic coma, but, Did I ever tell you this? Should I tell the story? Quick story. I knew this guy at 5FM. He called himself Bo Black. I mean, what a silly name. His real name was Bo Mosaneki. He was actually the son of the former constitutional judge, Dikgang Mosaneki. He was a DJ at 5FM, and I used to see him drink. I used to see him eat chips. He was thin. He looked fit and healthy. Nobody knew he was diabetic. He knew he was diabetic. He was type 1 diabetes. We went on some silly trip to Tiffindale to go skiing. I mean, look, it was fun. I enjoyed it. But I mean, what did it have to do with radio? Anyway, that's another story. Soon we're back from the trip. We hear, about a week or two later, we hear that Bo's in a diabetic coma. He's in a diabetic coma for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then one day I get a WhatsApp message that Bo has passed away. Yeah. And I just thought of that now. Yeah. That wasn't probably that necessary. Okay. Forget about it. But, another thing I completely forgot about, I made a note of this, and I feel a bit silly because it was the biggest story yesterday. One of the biggest stories. Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones passed away. He was 80 years old, so he passed away on Tuesday afternoon, South African time. And he was the drummer of the Rolling Stones. And I'm not a Rolling Stones fan. I mean, I acknowledge that, yes, they're one of the greatest bands ever in the world. And one of the greatest songs, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, but it's one of those songs I can't listen to over and over again. But I acknowledge they're one of the best bands ever. And their on-stage performances, just incredible. Just incredible. So Charlie Watts, let's give a bit of a tribute to Charlie Watts, even though I know very little about him. What I did find interesting is Paul McCartney saw Paul McCartney's tribute to Charlie Watts on Twitter. And, I've heard Paul McCartney being interviewed about 2 or 3 times with Howard Stern. And Paul McCartney is just amazing. He comes across as so down-to-earth, just such a normal guy. I mean, imagine you're Paul McCartney. Imagine you are Paul McCartney. You're going to be overwhelmed with fame, and it's going to get to you. You're going to think that you're God. Paul McCartney just thinks he's a normal guy from Liverpool. And he gave a very sweet tribute to Charlie Watts. He said that Charlie Watts was the rock of the Rolling Stones, and what a nice man, and he mentioned good drummer as well. Well, obviously he was a good drummer. Yeah, he was a good drummer. But having said that, I was reading other people were actually getting very technical about his drumming. So Charlie Watts, very interestingly enough, Charlie Watts actually was his background was actually jazz drumming. He was very much into jazz. And interestingly enough, I don't know much about the Rolling Stones' music, but when Charlie Watts gave them a little bit of that jazz kind of oomph kind of thing with some of their songs, with maybe a lot of their songs. So that's interesting. Look, just ignore. I heard something going around, but I don't believe it's true. People are saying that Keith Richards' secondhand smoke killed Charlie Watts. Hey, look, I can understand you have an axe to ground. You have a what's it? I'm looking not a calling. You have a mission to speak out and educate people about smoking and secondhand smoke. But you can't make things up. I mean, Charlie Watts smoked himself at one time. In fact, I saw a photo of him from whenever, and he was smoking. So I don't think it's true. There's rumors that Charlie Watts' family might actually take legal action against wrongful death suit against Keith Richards because of the secondhand smoke. That's Bobbermeisters. Somebody just made that up. Absolute Bobbermeisters. The three remaining members of the Rolling Stones, they also posted their tributes and all of that to Charlie Watts. So immediately, one of the first things that came to my mind was, what's going to happen with the Rolling Stones now? Is the Rolling Stones going to dissipate, fall apart, break up? I mean, they are. The one guy's 77, the other guy's 78. I think Mick Jagger had open heart surgery last year. Somebody had heart surgery. Well, these guys are pushing 80. I think Charlie Watts was the oldest. He was 80. Looked amazing for 80. But so then I saw that the Rolling Stones were about to embark on a tour, and Charlie Watts wasn't well, and Charlie Watts wasn't going to take part in the tour, so the Rolling Stones were going to use a stand-in drummer. So then I assume then that the Rolling Stones are going to carry on. I mean, they will carry on without Charlie Watts. Most people probably won't notice the difference. I suppose your real aficionados, if you're 60, 70, 80 years old, you'll probably notice the difference. If you're some music guru, I suppose you will notice the difference. But Gus Silber, now Gus Silber is South African. Gus Silber's he's like Peter Feldman of Sholem. Gus Silber's been around, same era, I think, as Peter Feldman, like an entertainment journalist. And Gus Silber, I see him on Twitter. He said, let's just give it a bit of context in case you're not that aware of Charlie Watts. He said Charlie Watts was the cornerstone, the anchor of the band. He made the Stones rock. He made them roll. He had the gift of perfect timing, calibrated to echo in sound and memory for generations to come. Gus Silber, I can't write like that. Can you write like that? That's a talent to write like that. In the context that this was a tweet, this was something on Twitter. So Gus Silber just... Well, shall I read it again? Quickly. The anchor of the band, he made the Stones rock, he made them roll. He had the gift of perfect timing, calibrated to echo in sound and memory for generations to come. It's beautiful. How many people can really just write like that off the top? If I wrote something like that, which I probably couldn't, but if I had to try something, I'd sit down for half an hour, come up with something like that. Another band that I've never followed, and I'm not even in band. I can't follow everybody. Nirvana. Did you see the story yesterday about this kid? So Nirvana's a famous album titled Nevermind. It was released in 1991. So the baby's on the cover floating in the water, and I think there's a dollar bill also floating with the baby. So that baby is now 30 years old. The man's name was now a man, Spencer Elvin. Spencer Elvin now wants to sue the Rolling Stones. Sorry. Wants to sue, I'll have to edit that out. He wants to sue Nirvana because he wants to use he wants to use some child porn law. And I thought, oh my God. I thought, oh my God, what did these Nirvana people do to this baby? And I had all these horrible thoughts. No, it's just a legal technical term. It's like a child, falls under the child porn laws. The parents at the time of the baby, Spencer Elvin's parents, did not give consent to use the photo on the album. So now Spencer Elvin, not Spencer Album, Spencer Elvin, sounds similar. He wants to sue Nirvana. Not as much as I thought. If you're going to sue Nirvana, you sue them for like $10 million or something. He wants $110,000 per band member. I don't know how many I'm embarrassed. I don't know how many band members are there. I'm assuming there's 4. So 3 that are alive, and then Kurt Cobain's estate, because Kurt Cobain of Sholem, he committed suicide. So Kurt Cobain's estate is going to be sued for this $110,000. What do you do? What do you do if you're Nirvana? Nirvana sold, just out of interest, 30 million copies of this album. So if Nirvana gives this Spencer Elvin, I'm doing that, eh? Spencer Elvin 30 million, if they give him $110,000 each, it's really nothing. Maybe we'll see what happens. What would you do if you were in Nirvana? No, in this case, I know you would buy a yacht and go and just lie back and don't. What would you do in this particular case? If I was Nirvana, I would say, you know what, you were a good baby. You didn't shit in the water. You did your part. And you know what, in hindsight, maybe we didn't ask your parents for consent. You know what? Kinchmanen, you're only asking for $110,000 each. Not a problem. It's what I spent on cocaine in a month. That's what I spent for a week in the Bahamas. It's really nothing. Okay. So that's what I would do if I was Nirvana. And you know what? A little bit of publicity couldn't hurt. Not that Nirvana needs the publicity. You get what I'm saying? But here's the thing that strikes me. Spencer Alvin is now 30 years old. After all this time, what made him decide? Let's do this? From what age did he know that he was the baby floating in the water? And look, he's 30 years old. You know, when you're 30 years old, you're thinking, well, this is the way I saw it. When I was 30 years old, I thought, okay, I'm 30. I'm not young anymore, but I'm not old. I could still be making money. You know, maybe by the time I'm 40, I will be comfortable and I'll be doing okay. Maybe Spencer Alvin, not so optimistic. Maybe, you don't know, I don't know his history. Maybe he dropped out of school. Maybe he's not so clever. Maybe he hasn't got such a good job. Maybe he's unemployed. Maybe he's living in his parents' basement and he doesn't see any good prospects. He thinks to himself, you know what? The last 10 years have just flashed by. I've done nothing with my life. I'm already 30. Maybe my life isn't going to improve. Maybe this is the time. And boom, let's do this. And maybe he's a bit ignorant. Does he not realize what kind of money? They call it fuck off money. You know, when you've got so much money, you can just tell the people to fuck off, you know? Nirvana have got fuck off money. He's only asking for $110,000 each. It's really nothing. I don't think he's given it enough thought. Unless, of course, his lawyers, clever lawyers, have told him, listen, yeah, if you ask for $10 million, Nirvana are going to say no. But you know what? $110,000, you know, maybe they stoned off the time, they won't be concentrating. Maybe they'll just give it. That's another point. Yeah. But this is the thing. Just think about this. At what age? And this is, I've read articles over the years that if you are not a billionaire or a millionaire by the time you're 40, 45, chances are you're not going to ever be a billionaire or a millionaire. If you're not hugely successful by the time you're 40, 45, it's not going to happen. That is the study. That's the generalization. Interesting, hey? There are exceptions, hey? Ricky Gervais only hits it big when he was like 40, so he just made that. The famous guy, I get no respect, Roger Dangerfield. Now, Roger Dangerfield, remember him? Do you know? Look him up. Roger Dangerfield, I get no respect, was his thing. He only became big. He only hit it big when he was like 50, something like that. So at what age do you realize, whoa, I've got it. This is it, hey? This is my life. I'm not going to do anything. This is not getting better. I'm not going to. If I was going to be successful, it would have happened by now. So Spencer Alvin, it happened for him at the age of 30. Interesting, huh? I think 30 is quite early. 30 is quite early for that kind of thing. Interesting. So I'm going to be, now I'm going to get depressed. I'm going to be 50 next month. 50 next month. And I'm fairly confident that I think things can still happen. Because I've been up and down. I've been, it was doing well at one time, then down, then up, then down. At the moment, very down. Could be worse. Could be worse. You know? Maybe this podcast, maybe I'll have 20 million listeners. I'm not getting deluded now. But you never know. Podcasts are growing. So you listening now, you what we call a foundation listener. A foundation. Do I give you a special membership thing? Probably not. Probably not. Sure. So what have we learned? What have we learned? What have we learned today? What have we do? Golden retrievers are nice dogs. Afghans. If you want to get an Afghan, your neighbors will be very impressed because nobody else has an Afghan. You know. What we learned. Yeah, look. This today was a bit schmaltzy. But schmaltzy, getting in touch with our feelings, I think. And yeah. Oh yeah, I noticed my head. I turned my head to the side. I must stop doing that.